Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the session. Now, what we are looking at is the case on Section 8, subsection 3, which is the disqualification of a member of parliament recently, which was in news quite controversially. So we'll resume from that point. Okay. Now, I want to introduce just a simple point about what is criminal defamation. I'm sure you are aware of at least the incident that had happened, meaning what are the facts of the case. I'm sure that you are in some cognizance of these things. What are the facts of the case and what are the incidents that are happening? Okay, so for example, when we take a look at criminal defamation, we are taking a look at section 499 and 500 of IPC, what is known as the Indian Penal Code. Okay, criminal defamation is section 499 and 500 of the Indian Penal Code 1860. Indian Penal Code is the book which the word penal over here is spoken in reference to the term penalty. Okay, the word penal over here is spoken in reference to the term penalty, because what it means to say is that there are some ways in which how you can, let's say, punish people who do certain offenses, which obviously means that any kind of a criminal act which is done by a person is known as an offense, and the IPC defines an offense. Example, what is a grievous hurt, and lays out the punishment for the offense, that what punishment is to be given to a person who has done some kind of a grievous hurt. That is what the Indian Penal Code states. That's the law book on criminal substantive law in India, right? All the actions of a person which are, let's say, offensive in nature, which are hurting someone, which are destroying someone's life or liberty or property, the people who do that, they are punished under the Indian Penal Code. Clear? The punishment for them, the definition of the crimes and the punishment of the crimes are given in the Indian Penal Code. It's the principal statute which governs criminal law in India. Okay, so this is one thing that we can take a look at. Now, apart from that, what we are taking a look at is the question of criminal defamation. Okay, criminal defamation as you would understand is made of two terms. Defame. Okay, fame means, let's say, for example, reputation, and D, you understand, is to, in a way, hurt someone's reputation, right? Like destroy is destructuring something. So defame is putting someone's reputation away from yourself, or him, destroying, hurting someone's reputation, as it is sometimes also known as Hindi as manhani. Man means reputation, hani means damage. Okay. So section 499 of the IPC defines what a defamation is, and I'm going to just paraphrase the definition of defamation over here. Okay, it says that if any person by words, okay, either spoken, written, that are intended to be read, or by visible signs and representations. Any person by either words which are spoken or written that they are intended to be read, or by visible signs or representations. Hurts the reputation of another person. Hurts the reputation of another person is liable to have committed defamation. Is liable to have committed defamation. This is a definition of defamation given in section 499. Please take a broken down that very complex definition given in section 499 into simple terms. It says that any person by words either spoken or written that are intended to be read, or by visible signs and representation, hurts the reputation of another person, is liable to have committed defamation. Okay, this is given in section 499 of the Indian Penal Code. Okay, then section 499 of the Indian Penal Code, having given this definition, within itself also lays out a section which is known as exception. Right, exception. So, for example, it says that if a public servant is criticized, for a public, with regard to a public duty, it will not be called a defamation. Okay, so section 499 defines defamation, but because it's a very overarching broad, structure of definition, the exceptions which are attached to section 499, what they do is they in a way try to what can I say? So, the sections which are attached to 499, they give exceptions as to what is not defamation, what will not be counted as defamation. Okay, that is given under section 499 of the IPC. So, this is one of the examples of what if this kind of a thing happens, it cannot be counted as defamation because it is an exception. Similarly, there are about 12 exceptions given which will not form the definition of defamation. And this is the structure of the section 499 of the Indian Penal Code. Okay, now let's come to the section 500. Section 500 of defamation, which talks about punishment for defamation. Section 500 talks about punishment for defamation. What does this imply? It states that a person who has committed defamation can be punished in the following orders, right? So, let's say for example, the punishment can range from imposing a fine to imprisonment of 2 years plus fine. Okay, this is what I am marking is a minimum punishment. The minimum punishment that can be given to a person who has been committing defamation is a fine. Okay, and the maximum punishment that can be given to a person is imprisonment of 2 years plus fine, right? And in this range you can have many categories. For example, you can have fine of ₹1 as the minimum punishment, then you can have fine of 20 lakh as slightly more. Okay, then you can have fine of 1 crore plus 2 months of imprisonment. Okay, then you can have fine of, let's say you have no fine but you have 2 years imprisonment. Right, so this is what basically what is given in section 500 of the IPC is that the minimum punishment of defamation is fine, which can be nominal. The maximum punishment is imprisonment, or imprisonment and fine both. So the maximum punishment can be the maximum amount of years that can be imprisoned, which is 2 years, which means that you cannot punish a person for defamation for more than 2 years. The maximum that a person can be punished in defamation is for a period of 2 years. Okay, and he can be asked to give fine. If a person has committed any kind of a defamation, whatever he has said, he cannot be punished beyond a period of 2 years. That is given under section 500 of the Indian Penal Code. Right? So it reads like this: the maximum punishment of defamation, a person can be punished for defamation with imprisonment, with fine, or imprisonment, or both, under the condition that imprisonment cannot exceed beyond a 2-year period. Right? So with this way you can get a kind of a range of, if you are a judge and if someone has committed defamation, this is the range. But I'm just, this is not exactly written in the IPC. I'm just saying that this is the minimum and this is the maximum, and then within this the judge can exercise any kind of permutation and combination: 2 months imprisonment, 1 lakh fine, 1 year imprisonment, 5 lakh fine, 5,000 fine, 10 days imprisonment. All kinds of permutations and combinations can be exercised by the judge in terms of getting a decision on a punishment of the person, depending upon what kind of a defamation has been committed by that person, right? How much the reputation of another person has been harmed, right? So this is something. So this is something that you can take a look at in terms of the maximum punishment that can be given for defamation under this section is 2 years of imprisonment plus fine. The second maximum is 2 years of imprisonment without fine. Okay, this is what basically we understand by the concept of criminal defamation. If you have a question which is concerning criminal defamation, you can answer that question with this kind of a understanding. Okay, section 499 defines defamation, and section 500 gives out the punishment for defamation, and that's basically what IPC does. IPC defines a particular crime, what is the definition of it, and then it after defining a particular crime, it describes the punishment for that crime. Okay, clear? Right. Now we can, in a way, get a very clear sense of it. Remember, in this particular case, let's say for example, when we are discussing the case about the member of parliament over here, who was, let's say, let me just give you a timeline of how all of this was happening. Okay. The first is 2019. 2019, before the general elections, Lok Sabha elections of 2019, the member of parliament had made some remarks which were considered offensive by a group of people, and on this date of making these remarks, an FIR was filed in Surat. Okay, clear? Then after that, this FIR was kept under some suspension or abeyance, and in 2022, I think in 2023, yeah, this is recent, 2023, Judicial Magistrate First Class, JMFC, passed an order in which the Member of Parliament was convicted of defamation. Under section 499 and imprisoned and sentenced for a period of 2 years. Right? The maximum imprisonment which could be granted in the defamation case was given to this person, right? Sentenced for a period of 2 years. Okay, so in 2019 an FIR was filed, right? In 2020 the JMFC order put out what is known as convicted for defamation and sentenced for a 2 year, 2020 this happened. Okay, now as soon as the JMFC order came, right, just some time later on that from the date in 2023, the Lok Sabha Secretariat disqualified the Member of Parliament under section 8 subsection 3 of RPA 1951. Please take a look at this. As soon as the order came from the from the Judicial Magistrate First Class in 2023, just immediately after that, the Lok Sabha Secretary, upon having seen the order of the Judicial Magistrate, disqualified the MP under section 8 subsection 3 of RPA 1951. Okay, and from this date onwards, the Member of Parliament was disqualified. Okay, the Member of Parliament was not allowed to sit in the Parliament under the operation of 8 subsection 3. Right? Let me just take you back to what we were discussing in section 8 subsection 3. Take a look at this, please. Please take a look at this. Section 8 subsection 3. What are we taking a understanding of? If any person is convicted for any offence and has been sentenced to serve an imprisonment of minimum 2 years, then he will be disqualified for a period of 6 years from the date of his release. Okay, so this is how the timeline develops. Okay, so in some time later on, the sentencing of 2 years was suspended by getting a bail. The Member of Parliament procured a bail from this court, and therefore his imprisonment was kept on a suspension, not terminated but only temporarily suspended. And this part over here, the conviction of the offence of defamation, was challenged in an appeal before Surat Sessions Court, and then later on before the Gujarat High Court. right? Both of these appeals have been dismissed, and both of these appeals have maintained the position that the offence committed by the member of parliament deserves a punishment of 2 years, right? The appeal which was made by the member of parliament before the Sessions Court and before the Gujarat High Court had stated that the appeal, that the decision which was taken by, that the offence which was committed did not require the maximum punishment to be given. Okay, as I am telling you that 2 years imprisonment is the maximum imprisonment that can be given. It means that it cannot go beyond this. It can be lower than this, but it cannot go beyond this. So the appeal challenged the order of the Surat court, stating that this is a draconian judgment which has been given, and it does not require any kind of a situation in which this person has said so much and so ridiculous that it deserves a maximum punishment of 2 years as prescribed by the RPA 1951 section 8 subsection 3. Okay, but the Gujarat High Court and the Sessions Court before that maintained the position of the Surat court in stating that they reinstated the idea, the point of the Gujarat Surat court order, and the appeal was dismissed without any relief to the person. Okay, this is the current status of this particular case law. Okay, just take a look at the timeline over here, and if you want I can explain it to you again. In 2019, an FIR was filed against the member of parliament in Surat for having said the statements that you all know what has been said, okay, for defamation under section 499. In 2023, the Judicial Magistrate First Class released an order in which he convicted the person of the defense of the offence of defamation and sentenced for a period of 2 years under section 500. And then immediately after that, the Lok Sabha Secretariat disqualified the member of parliament under section 8 subsection 3 of the RPA 1951. You see the point? And thus, after the order was given by the person, 2 steps were taken by the member of parliament currently is out on bail. The member of parliament currently is out on bail, but there is an appeal which has been made regarding the convict of defamation, a termination, saying that this kind of an order was not correctly made and there were problems which were inside the order. This kind of an observation has been taken out, and the appeal is lying before the Surat Sessions Court from the judgment of the JMFC. Surat Sessions Court dismissed the appeal, stating that the judgment is correct, and so did the Gujarat High Court. Okay, and now the Gujarat High Court is sitting on a vacation, so therefore it is not releasing an order. I think on July 7, the Gujarat High Court will release the order, and then from the Gujarat High Court the matter will go to the Supreme Court of India. Right, and the Supreme Court will take an appeal on this matter, which will be the final decision by the courts in India as to whether this punishment is correct or not. Okay, so this is the entire case in which we can understand what happened with the member of parliament case from Wayanad constituency in Kerala. Okay, now let's take a little bit of a brief technical understanding. In this case, what can be the duration of disqualification? In this case, what can be the duration of disqualification? Okay. Because we have to understand section 8 subsection 3, we have to see what can be the duration of disqualification under 8 subsection 3. Okay. Now the duration says this. Let's say for example, the disqualification starts from the date of court order. The date of court order on conviction. The date of court order on conviction. This is the first date on which things start. Okay. Then after that, this is where the person is disqualified. Okay. But on this date itself, the person by the behest of the Lok Sabha Secretariat can be disqualified, right? Now let's take a look at this. From this date onwards, this entire duration, let's call it X. Okay, this entire duration, let's call it Y, and this entire duration, let's call it Z. These are timelines, okay? X, let's say xt, yt, and zt. You can understand this in a kind of a timeline framework. Xt, yt, and zt. Right? Now, the question is that what are these three components that we have discussed? Let me write it out as an equation. Xt is duration of appeal. Okay. Yt is duration of imprisonment, and zt equals to 6 years after release, which means total imprisonment equals to xt plus yt plus zt. Okay, and zt in relation to the section 8 subsection 3 is always 6 years. Okay, just take a look at this, try to see if you can get a sense of what I am trying to tell about here. Right, if you want, you can, obviously I'm sure that you're I'm hoping that you're taking notes of this, because then you'll not be able to remember this later on. Please take a look at this and see if I'm able to make a point that I'm trying to make. Please try to understand this under section 8 subsection 3, the duration of disqualification, right? And once we're done, I'll explain it to you. Okay, so now here's a point. Let's say if Rahul Gandhi he gets an order from the Gujarat High Court on this date, and all of this time, this period which is written over here, is spent in appealing before different courts, right? This duration when there is an appeal. Now that section 8 subsection 4 does not apply, this duration will be included in the part of disqualification. This duration cannot be taken away during the to calculate the duration of disqualification. So he will be disqualified for these times altogether. Let's say after the appeal has been made, one of the ways that the appeal can go is that it cancels the order, or let's say it overturns the order of the judicial magistrate first class. Then from the date of the overturning of the order, from this date, this disqualification would be cancelled. From the date of the overturning of the order, this disqualification would be cancelled. Do you see it? See, let's say if this is one way in which it is moving, that the order has not been overturned, then the disqualification moves on. But if the order has been overturned, the disqualification will be cancelled, and from this the membership will be restored, right? But in this particular case, it is not going over here, but it is going over here, right? So all the time which has been spent, let's say it is being spent into appealing, and if the appeal is not giving you a favorable judgment, and all the courts are stating that the criminal defamation is correct, then the duration of appeal will be calculated. YT is a duration of imprisonment, right? This is the time that has to be served as a person in imprisonment. And now that all your appeals are exhausted, you have to serve the imprisonment. Okay, and this is given as, in this particular case, 2 years. Right? In this particular case, it is 2 years. So 2 years the disqualification will happen. A time spent for appeal will be disqualified, and then the date on which the release happens. This is the date of release, okay? This is the date of release. This period over here is the, what you can call, 6 years after the date of release, what is given in section 8 subsection 3. Okay, so what this means is, let's say for example, in our case, on the Rahul Gandhi case, let's scientifically breaking it down, what is the disqualification duration going to be like? Which is an important question because it is a political controversy around. Now, if let's say for example, if the Supreme Court here overturns the matter, then on the date that the Supreme Court overturns the matter, the membership will be restored, and also the member of parliament can contest the next Lok Sabha elections without any prohibitions. Because remember, under section 7 of the RPA 1951, the Lok Sabha elections, the membership of the membership of the member of parliament can only be disqualified. The definition of disqualification can mean not only just the moving away of the person from the seat, but also the inability of the person to participate in the next elections, right? So, but if the disqualification over here, if the judgment of this order has been overturned, then this disqualification will be reversed, and the member will be given his seat back at the Lok Sabha, and he will also be respectfully allowed to contest elections. But if the Supreme Court also holds the order of the Gujarat High Court, then the areas of imprisonment collapse. The areas of appeal all are exhausted. Beyond the Supreme Court, you cannot go anywhere. So, the 2 years have to be served as imprisonment, during which the person will remain disqualified. Okay? And the 6 years after the date of the release, as is given in section 8 subsection 3, this is a period when he will when he will be released from the prison, when he will be out of the prison. But 6 years after the date of the release of prison, he will remain disqualified, right? So what is given in orange, I'm sorry, I've written it incorrectly over here, not talking about total imprisonment but total disqualification. So in this condition, the total disqualification is xt here plus yt here plus zt here. You see the point? xt plus yt plus zt. Clear? So this is what we are in a way trying to understand as a part which can be taken up and clearly understood. Okay? I hope you understand. Thoda sa complicated, this can be a little bit complicated, but it's important because you see the point is this. Let's say if I mark this date as 2023, if an order is given like this, right? And let's say all the appeals are exhausted by 2024. Then what happens is not only that the 2024 the person is disqualified, but for this amount of period 2 plus 6 years the person will not be allowed to contest Lok Sabha elections, which is obviously covering not only 2024 Lok Sabha elections but also 2029 Lok Sabha elections. Lok Sabha elections after 2024 are supposed to be held in 2029. Now these are 5 years. Disqualification is of 2 plus 6, 8 years, which means that not only 2024 but also 2029 elections cannot be contested by this person. You see it? And therefore the Supreme Court of India has now the ball in its court as to whether it will let it happen or it will not let it happen. And that is why this is becoming a matter of huge political controversy, which you may just want to keep your eyes open towards. Clear? This is something which will come up before Supreme Court in July, and when it is before the Supreme Court, you can look at the news articles and see what is it that can come out of it. Okay? All right, clear. This is part is, I feel, understood very easily by you. Right, any question with regard to disqualifications? If you have any questions in this particular matter, I can answer them now. Please, any questions with regard to disqualification? Okay, Nimai has a question. How hate speech differs from defamation, and can an MP, MLA be disqualified on the basis of hate speech? Yes. Yes. I told you. For example, here. There are different sections of the Indian Penal Code which deal with hate speech. For example, let's take a look at this. Section 8 specifies certain parts which are a part of the hate speech. Right? So, disturbs or incites communal hatred. There are different sections of the, see, hate speech is made against a group of people, against a community at large, against a set of people. Defamation is made against a particular individual or a person or a small group of people. Okay, so hate speech is a social evil. Defamation may be a personal evil, and therefore the IPC has different sections covering hate speech and defamation with different definitions and different imprisonments. That's the difference that we have to characteristically underline in this regard. Okay, the difference between hate speech and defamation has been given, outlined clearly in this sense. Okay, now coming back. If any officer cannot obey, this is Biswajit, if any officer cannot obey the order of court, it could under defamation? No, that is not defamation, that is contempt of court. If a person does not obey the order of a court, it is contempt of court. Any person who does not obey, being an officer or not being an officer, is held to be under contempt of court, Article 129 of the Constitution. it gives the Supreme Court the power to punish for its own contempt. Okay, that covers in contempt of court, not under defamation. Does the range of punishment depend upon the extremity of words one has used in defaming? Yes, the extremity of words, the intention behind stating those words, how sharp and how below the belt, or how extraordinarily ridiculous it was to say something to something like that. So on that basis the punishment is decided, and the maximum that can be punished, the worst thing that you can say to a person can lead you to a maximum punishment of 2 years, not more than that. Okay, 2 years is the maximum punishment. So most of the time defamation is very perspective. This is Bidisha, is very perspective in nature, which is subjective in nature. How can someone be convicted with respect to it and imprisoned for so long? Now, yes, of course, there are the judgments made by the Supreme Court and High Court which kind of set guidelines for the lower courts to decide as to what can be considered as a defamation and not defamation. So it may be subjective, but at the same time, there are so many cases which have happened in the Supreme Court and High Court where they've created a set of tests for determining whether this will count as defamation or not defamation. So it is not all completely left to opinion, but yes, the judge may have a prejudice, the judge may have a bias, the judge may have a subjectivity. You're correct in pointing that out. Can I explain bail? Yes, surely. If you take a look at any offense, offense as I have given you the understanding is a criminal wrong, a wrong done by, or a wrong which is done in a criminal nature. So the definition of offense is that it is a criminal wrong, right? Now offense, when it is being tried, has two ways of understanding it. The first question that is asked is the court convinced that X has committed this offense? Okay, this is a question that one can ask. Is the court convinced that X has committed this offense? Okay. And the second question that is asked is, what should be the appropriate punishment / penalty for this offense? Okay, this is, let's say for example, let's call it A and let's call it B. Okay, first is the court convinced that X has committed this offense, and B, what should be the appropriate punishment / penalty for this committed offense? Okay, now first question is about A. Now if A has been answered as yes, the court is convinced that this person has committed the offense. The understanding of the evidence, etc., by reading everything with regard to the matter, if the court is convinced that this person has said it, meaning, they take witnesses and evidences and they do a trial, and then they come to a conviction that this person committed the murder. It was his hand which had the knife on that night, and he pierced it into the chest of another person. We are convinced that he committed the murder. This kind of a this kind of a act of being convinced is known as conviction. That is why we call it conviction of an offense or convicted of an offense, that the court is convinced that this person has committed an offense. So it is a point at which the court realizes that this person has done the murder. Now if you get A correct, Okay. Then the next question is that once that person has committed the murder, what do you do about that person? What should be the appropriate punishment, penalty for this committed offense? Now, as I have given you as an example, every offense has been given a minimum to maximum as a range. Okay, so for example, in defamation, minimum is fine and maximum is imprisonment of 2 years plus fine of a higher amount. So this kind of a range has been given for every judge by the Indian Penal Code, from which he can choose as to what has to be done in this particular question. You see the point? And that is basically the appropriate punishment, appropriate being the operative term here. They will have to take a look at the conditions. Was the person under intoxication? Was the person troubled? Was the person in the heat of the moment, etc. when he committed the crime? Was the person politically motivated? Was the person not meaning to say it but meant something else altogether? So what is the punishment that should be given to the person in this regard is something that the court takes account of. Okay, and then after taking an account of, when the court comes to an appropriate punishment, okay, this is known as sentence. Okay, so we are dealing with two terms: conviction, the conviction of an offense, and a sentence of a person. Sentence can be imprisonment or fine or both. Okay, so someone has been fined, it is a sentence. See, why is it called a sentence? Because you have completed the entire sentence and you put a full stop, that you've arrived at the final decision of the matter. The sentence is complete. This is a complete sentence. We have arrived at the conclusion of it. So you, in a way, determine the destiny of a person by putting a full stop. That is why it was called sentence. Okay, so conviction leads to sentence, right? Now, in some cases, whenever a person has been given a conviction and a sentence, he can go and apply before the court for a suspension of sentence. Not termination of a sentence, but a suspension of sentence. That for some time his suspend must be, for some time his sentence must be suspended, it must be just let off for some time. In return of something, in return of a money which has to be deposited. And this kind of an agreement is known as a bail, that you deposit certain money with the police authorities, and in return of that money and with some conditions, this person's sentence can be suspended. This is known as a bail. Conviction, suspension of a sentence is known as a bail. But suspension of sentence does not by itself mean that the conviction is also suspended. The conviction stands, the conviction sustains even during a sentence. Okay, the conviction sustains even during a sentence. And once the conviction sustains, then the person cannot be, his disqualification cannot be restored in that sense. So our member of parliament currently is at this stage. He has gotten his sentence suspended, not terminated, but his conviction still stands. Both the Gujarat High Court and the Session Court say that you can take a bail, but the order of the Judicial Magistrate First Class is correct and it will stand. We are not going to cancel or suspend that. Okay, and therefore the order stands, and therefore the person still remains disqualified. That's the point that we have to pay a little bit of an attention towards. Okay, I hope I am able to understand you categorically what is the meaning of the term bail. Suspension of sentence. It does not mean suspension of the conviction. Okay. Anirvan, who can disqualify an MP? Is it the Speaker, Chairman, or the Secretariat of concerned House? That's the question that I'm going to come next. I'm going to just finish off this entire part by looking at Article 103. Right, we have taken a look at Article 101 and 102. I'm just going to take a look at Article 103. Okay, that is where the question is whether the act can be done by the President or the Lok Sabha Secretariat. So I'll take up all those questions with regard to that in just a little bit. Biswajit, can in 2024 Rahul Gandhi contest elections of Lok Sabha? Can he be elected Rajya Sabha or not? No, no, no. You're disqualified as a member of parliament all across. No house of the parliament, even for a member of legislative assembly, you cannot contest elections. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता है. ऐसा obviously not. You think the law will leave a loophole like this so prominently open? No. Once disqualified, or disqualified from eligibility of all the houses, MP, MLA, Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, Vidhan Parishad, everywhere. Okay. Okay. Nayan, Shiladitya, I've taken your question in Article 103. I'll explain it to you. Aditya, can we use these flowcharts in our answer copies? 100% yes. Why am I drawing them? You are taking. I'm hoping that you're taking a note of these, and you can use these flowcharts. Very effective in answer writing in main examination. If you can write answers with these flowcharts, you're very clearly ahead of the competition. Right? It's one of the most effective ways of expressing things that you can think of. Okay. If Rahul Gandhi is convicted by SC also, and if he wins election, then can PM at time tell the president to grant pardon to Rahul Gandhi? Yeah, that's true. Nayan, you're absolutely correct. Pardons can be granted on criminal offences, so he can be pardoned by the Prime Minister of India. Yes. 100%. Only disqualified for MP seat or all other posts, like all other posts. Is any police officer can physically torture or apply third degree over criminal or accused person? It is a crime under Article 20 and under Article 22 to torture a person. You have to go to the court and tell the person, present the body of the person in the habeas corpus before a court. So you obviously cannot do that. That is why there is a 24-hour rule to present before the magistrate, because the police is not doing any manhandling of the person, right? You have that rule in Article 20 and Article 22. Okay. What are bailable and non-bailable offences? Simple. Certain offences you cannot get out of bail on. These are less extreme in nature. Certain offences more extreme in nature, that it is such a bad offence that you cannot be given a bail. Bailable offences are less extreme in nature, in which you can be suspending a sentence for some time. Okay. I hope I've taken all the questions here. Okay. I think there was a question about civil defamation. I didn't answer, Shiladitya. Just give me an understanding. See, civil defamation में क्या होता है ना? You are speaking ill about someone, and it leads to the loss of someone. Okay. Let's say, for example, I'm speaking ill about a company, and that company starts losing its share market value. This is an example of civil defamation. Okay. So you can compensate for it. If any damage has been done to someone's business because of your civil defamation of it, you can compensate for something like this. But a criminal defamation is a defamation which hurts the dignity of a person. You may say something about me, I don't mind it. But what you have done is you've caused loss to me in some way or the other. That's civil defamation. If you've done something to me and I have, let's say, took it to my heart, it has hurt my dignity, it has hurt my self-esteem, it has made me anxious, it has made me unpopular among the people, my life and liberty are in some kind of a difficulty because of you, that is criminal defamation. It's a very simple, broadistic understanding that I can give you right now. Okay. Now, so having done Article 101 and 102 and Section 7 to Section 8, I will resume back to one part and then carry on with the remaining provisions of the Representation of People Act, that is Article 103 of the Constitution. Now, this is a part that we are discussing with regard to who has the power to, disqualify the Member of Parliament. Now, as Shiladitya is pointing out very clearly, that the power to disqualify someone is only with the authority which has appointed him? Well, yes and no. The power of disqualification is very different from power of termination. Disqualification is happening by the operation of a law. The decision is not taken by the president. What you can call the decision is already taken by the court, and the parliament has made a law upon it. So it may and it may not actually fall under that category. Let's take a look at Article 103. Okay, what does Article 103 state? Let me just elaborate this. Article 103 states, if any person, if any question arises on the subject of disqualification, under Article 102, if any question arises on the subject of disqualification under Article 102, it, meaning this question, shall be referred to the parliament, to the president, shall be referred to the president, whose decision shall be final. Just take a look at this, please. If any question arises on the subject of disqualification under Article 102, it shall be referred to the president, whose decision shall be final. Okay, 1, and then 2. The president shall take the opinion of the ECI, of the Election Commission of India. The president shall take the opinion of the Election Commission of India, and the Election Commission of India, or let's say, I can write it like this. The president shall be bound by such opinion. Okay, now this is an interesting part. Article 103 states this, please read it properly and then ask the question, is it really the question about president, or actually the power has been given to the Election Commission of India? Election Commission of India, as all of you know, is found in part in Article 324 of the Constitution. Election Commission of India is found in Article 324 of the Constitution. Okay, the president shall take the opinion of the ECI, and the president shall be bound by such opinion, is what is given in Article 103. Right, so this is Article 103. Now the question is, you have in this particular case the decision of disqualification has been finalized by the Lok Sabha Secretariat. The decision of disqualification has been finalized by the Lok Sabha Secretariat. Okay. Now the Lok Sabha Secretariat the question is that once a person has been disqualified, it means once an order of the court has come, can the person be disqualified immediately the moment he is found to be convicted of an offence? Right. Now if you, for example, take a look at the Lily Thomas case, which is a case I have mentioned you previously. in the Lily Thomas case, the Supreme Court has said that the disqualification must come into effect immediately to avoid the criminalization of politics. And if this interpretation is correct, then the Lok Sabha Secretariat can say the decision is to be made by it. Okay, but there is another case known as the Consumer Society case, in which the Supreme Court had held that precedent has to be necessarily or has to be mandatorily make the decision under Article 103 upon disqualification. Yeah, I hope you can make a point about it. It says that President has to mandatorily make the decision under Article 103 upon disqualification. You see, this is the point that I'm trying to, in a way, say that Supreme Court has in different judgments said different things, and the Supreme Court has not necessarily given a clarity upon this as of now. Now, the present case took the virtue from the Lily Thomas case, and it dismissed disqualified the member of parliament. But a lot of people are pointing out that this power has to be exercised by the President of India. In fact, in reality, by the Election Commission of India, because electoral cases can be more complicated than what they seem to be on the surface. Okay, from a distance, you may look at a case which is very simply being designed by or discovered by a law, by a court, but Election Commission of India has the wisdom to look at a case which is related to elections and can deduce the political motivations upon what is happening. So even in cases, for example, in which a court order has given disqualification, a court order has given conviction to someone, the Election Commission of India, even without the court order being suspended, can still say that this person cannot be disqualified, because what is happening over here is not law and order but politics, because Election Commission of India understands how politics happens in a country, and it knows the ways in which people can be sabotaged from their political representation by using or abusing the laws. So the final power under Article 103, according to this case, has been given to Election Commission of India, which cannot be bypassed. But according to this case, the disqualification must take effect immediately, which implies that the Lok Sabha Secretariat can do it. Right? And that is why, for example, when the current case of criminal defamation reaches the Supreme Court has two questions to ask. Two grounds upon which it will hear the petitioner. Number one, the imprisonment of 2 years, was it justified? Was it justified to give such a imprisonment for the quality of the crime or the offense committed? Okay. And second is, the question is that whether Article 102 can be bypassed. Okay, sorry, Article 103 can be bypassed, and can the Lok Sabha Secretariat exercise greater powers than the President under Article 103. So, Supreme Court will probably issue a clarification upon this reading this time. Okay. If you ask my personal opinion on this, I think the Supreme Court will go by saying that the President has to necessarily look in a issue like this, and it must refer to it to the Election Commission of India. The Lok Sabha Secretariat cannot do it, but that's just my personal opinion. We'll wait and see what the Supreme Court is going to say. So what I'm saying is, just keep your eyes open when this kind of a news arrives in the newspapers, so that you can get a sense of what is being talked about at this point of time. Okay. Clear? I hope that I can take up this. So we are done with Article 101, 102 and 103. 101 has 4 grounds. Out of them, one of them is disqualification. Okay, and then disqualification itself has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Out of that, number 5 is a law made by the parliament, and that is RPA 1951. And RPA 1951 talks about section 7 and section 8, which has 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Most importantly, we have discussed section 3 and section 4. You know, an interesting part of this entire story was that when we were taking a look at section 8 subsection 4, this, after the Supreme Court had struck down this particular section under the RPA, under the Lily Thomas versus Union of India, the Congress government wanted to bring an ordinance in which it could replace this section again. It could actually make a new section, or make the provisions of these sections come back into the law again. It wanted to pass an ordinance, but it was the member of parliament himself who had very publicly torn down the ordinance, stating that we are not going to promote any criminalization of politics. And since then, ordinance has not been able to impact. And the reason why it was in the news for a little bit of a time recently was because the member of parliament, if he would have had the ordinance come into effect, which would have restored section 8 subsection 4, he would not be disqualified while an appeal was pending in the Sessions Court or the High Court or the Supreme Court, right? So that kind of a situation is what we are taking a look at over here. Right, so this is what we can take a look at in terms of the whole saga about disqualification of the member of parliament from Wayanad. Okay, don't worry about that, Spandan. I am just giving you these notes. What I am saying is that you can attach these flowcharts as infographics, okay, in the questions. These are not supposed to be the main content of your answer, of course. I am cognizant of that, and whatever we are taking in classrooms, I am going to make sure that you get as a set of notes properly. Either I will dictate the notes in the class, or you will have a PDF of those notes sent to you. Everything that we are dealing with will be in a sentence constructed format given to you. You don't worry about that. That is our responsibility. In addition to that, these flowcharts and these infographics can come in handy. If you find the space somewhere or the other, you can put it to that. But these are additional. These are not in the same league as sentences, right? So obviously, I'm taking that as a, obviously I know that you cannot write diagrams and flowcharts in the answers. You need some very clearly constructed sentences. But today I'm focusing more upon making you understand it. And then very clearly, I'll give you certain notes about it that you can use it 100%. Don't worry about that. Okay. ठीक है. Right. Okay. Now we can move to the next set of sections of the RPA, which are with disqualifications, right? Okay. First you have section 8A, okay, then you have section 9, then you have section 9A, then you have section 10, then you have section 10A, and then you have section 11. Okay, these are the items that are associated with this part. Section 8A, section 9, section 9A, section 10, section 10A, and section 11. Okay, now I'm going to just pull out the document of the Representation of People's Act so we can quickly take care of these things. Like here, just take a look at the document itself. This chapter 3, which disqualifications of membership of parliament in state legislature. It starts with section 7, section 8, section 8A, section 9, section 10, 9A, 10, 10A, and 11. This is an entire set that we are trying to cover today. This is the most important and the most important and the most relevant part that we have to study and learn from the Representation of People's Act. Okay, so we have done till section 8. We take a look at 8A, 9, 9A, 10, 10A, and 11. Right, so let me just briefly explain to you what section 8A says. Okay, section 8A states that any person who is found guilty of a corrupt practice by an order under section 99 shall be submitted by such authority as the central government may specify in this behalf to the President for determination of the question as to whether such person shall be disqualified, and if so, for what period. Provided that the period for which any person may be disqualified under this subsection shall in no case exceed 6 years from the date on which the order made in relation to him under section 99 takes effect. Okay, just take about a minute and read this, and then I will explain this to you. Section 8A. Okay, just try to read it procedurally, formally, as to what the procedure which is given over here. Okay, let's try to understand. This says that if a person is involved in a corrupt practice, okay, let's take a look at this. What is the meaning of corrupt practice? Okay, I am just drawing a kind of a disintegration of section 8A. I'm trying to decode it. What is a thing known as a corrupt practice? Okay, A corrupt practice is something which is done with regard to elections. Let's say, for example, anyone has done a corrupt practice with regard to manipulating the results of elections. If any person has done anything with regard to manipulating the results of elections, this will be determined as a corrupt practice. If any person has done anything with regard to manipulating the results of elections, booth capturing, intimidating the voters, destroying infrastructure, intimidating the staff conducting the elections, any of these activities which relate to corrupt practices in elections are what is covered under section 8A. Okay. Now, first point about this is that it is the High Court of the state which decides if a person has committed corrupt practice. Okay, so let's say, for example, if X has committed corrupt practice in election or not. Let's say, for example, if I am a person who is being blamed that he has done manipulation of the voters, he has intimidated the voters, he has scared the staff conducting elections, he has used force or violence or fear or some kind of a malpractice to not let some people vote, to make some people double vote, etc., etc. Any of that, let's say, is a blame against me. Who decides whether I have committed a corrupt practice or not? The High Court. Okay. Now, the High Court, once it has given an order that this person is actually found to be guilty of committing corrupt practices, this order is given by the High Court under section 99. Okay. Then the President of India. The President of India, on the basis of this order, may disqualify X for a maximum period of 6 years. This is what is given under section 8A. Please take a look at this. I have laid it down structurally, categorically for you. Section 8A talks about corrupt practices. It says that if a person who is manipulating the results of the elections, let's say, for example, X, he is blamed upon corrupt practice. First is, who decides whether a corrupt practice has happened or not? And that is the High Court under section 99 of the RPA. And then once an order has been given by the High Court, President, on the basis of that order, may, exercising his discretion, decide whether the person can be disqualified and the number of years that can be disqualified with regard to this. Okay. You see the point? This is the whole idea about disqualifying someone. It may not be just a member of parliament, you see. It may be any person. Let's say, for example, if I am a supporter of a political party, and during elections I get very hyper and I try to win the political party's love by manipulating elections or by intimidating voters, etc., etc. I try to prove it to the political party that I am the real good well-wisher. If it is proved before the High Court that this person has engaged in corrupt practices during elections, and if the President, on the basis of the order of the High Court, disqualifies me, the President has the power to disqualify me for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, or 5 years, or 6 years. Okay, which means that during this time I will not be allowed to contest elections. I will not be able to receive a political party, the political party I am trying to please, I will not be able to receive a ticket from that political party, right? And also I will have a dhabba on my face that I am a person who was convicted for, or who was disqualified by the President for being manipulating elections, which is itself a kind of a boj on my reputation. Clear? So this is what section 8A states. I hope that you're getting it clearly. Slowly and steadily we are covering a lot of plot we've covered almost everything that we were setting our agenda for today already. Are we clear? Section 8A, corrupt practices. Okay, now let's take a look at Section 9. Remember, we are doing Section 8, Section 8A, Section 9, Section 9A, Section 10, Section 10A, and Section 11. Okay. Section 9, take a look at this. Disqualification for dismissal for corruption or disloyalty. A person who, having held an office under the government of India or under the government of any state, has been dismissed for corruption or for disloyalty to the state shall be disqualified for a period of 5 years from the date of such dismissal. Okay, what does it mean? Let's say, for example, Section 9 talks about disqualification for dismissal from a public office. Disqualification for dismissal from a public office. Now, this is what Section 9 states. What does it mean? It means, let's say, for example, if this is X, let's say, for example, X was the chairman of BHEL, Bharat Heavy Electronics Limited, which can be called a public office, or let me, for example, over here, not use the term public office, but use the term office under the state. Disqualification for dismissal from an office under the state, right? So if, let's say, for example, if this is a chairman of the BHEL, Mr. X, while he was at BHEL, he was dismissed. He was dismissed for, let's say, for example, corruption, or let's say, for example, disloyalty towards the Constitution of India, or for doing something which is against the interest of the government of India or the government of the state or the people of India. For any of the activities which may be considered against the interest of the nation, if he has been dismissed because of that, this person who has been dismissed will be disqualified. Will be disqualified from becoming an MP, MLA, or MLC under Section 9 of the Constitution. Okay, and this duration of this disqualification will be that of 5 years from the date of such dismissal. Okay, if, let's say, X is the date, let's say T1 is the date of such dismissal from where he has been dismissed, he will remain disqualified for a period of 5 years from T1, from becoming a member of parliament, member of legislative assembly, and member of legislative council. Okay, this is what we take a look in terms of understanding Section 9 of the RPA. Take a look at this Section 9, and then I'll give you an understanding of the subsection 2 of Section 9. Take a look at Section 9 subsection 1. A person who having held an office under the government of India or the government of any state has been dismissed for corruption or for disloyalty to the state shall be disqualified for a period of 5 years from the date of such dismissal. Okay. 9 section 2 says, for the purposes of subsection 1, a certificate issued by the chief election by the election commission to the effect that a person having held office under the government of India or under the government of a state has or has not been dismissed for corruption of disloyalty of the state shall be conclusive proof of that fact. Which means that in this case, if the Election Commission of India has given a certificate stating that this person has been dismissed, then that would be enough of a proof to say that this person has been dismissed. There is no need for a further court inquiry whether the person has been dismissed or not. Okay, so the proof of dismissal, that the proof that the person has actually been dismissed being a public servant, is to be ascertained by the Election Commission of India, not by a court of law. Let's say if I am dismissed, but I want to challenge the fact that I am not dismissed, I am just taking a leave, I am on a chutti or something like that. Now, if a question comes whether the person has been dismissed or not, in reality, the answer to that will be given by the Election Commission of India. If it gives a certificate that the person has been dismissed, but if the Election Commission of India conducts an inquiry under which it says that the person has been dismissed, then that is enough for stating that the person has been dismissed. You don't have to go to a court to challenge or find out whether the person is actually dismissed or is actually on a leave. Okay, let's say for example, a person retired from the chairmanship of BHEL in 1995, or is like, let's say his his term as a chairman of BHEL ended in 1995 under what you can call mysterious circumstances. Something, let's say he was involved in sexual harassment or something like that, and he was asked politely to leave. Right now, in 2022, he contests elections, and when he's contesting elections, someone recalls that he has been dismissed, and then he doesn't want to show the papers, and the BHEL also doesn't want to show paper, and all of these things are happening. Election Commission of India can conduct an inquiry into that and find out whether he was dismissed or not. If the Election Commission of India finds out that he is dismissed, it will issue a certificate, and that certificate would be enough of a proof that an inquiry has been done upon the fact that he has been dismissed, and you don't need a CBI or a CVC or a CID or a court to do any more inquiries. Election Commission certificate is a conclusive proof that it has taken a look at the matter, and according to its investigation, the dismissal had actually happened, which makes this person disqualified from becoming a member of the parliament or Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, or the Legislative Assembly. Right? That is what section 9 over here states. Please take a look at this, please. If you're okay that we can take a understanding of section 9, slowly and steadily we'll covering sections after section. Section 9, disqualification for dismissal from an office under the state. If X being a chairman of, now office under the state, I'm sure you understand the point of it, right? Office under the state means only an office under the government of India or the government of any state, right? So you cannot have public offices or private offices in this category, only which is given employment by the government of India in one way or the other. Clear? Right? This is section 9. Okay, now let's move on to the next part, which is section 9A. Section 9A, disqualification for government contracts, etc., etc. Okay, it states very simply, this is a simple section. It states that a person shall be disqualified if and for so long as there subsists a contract entered into by him in the course of his trade or business with the appropriate government for the supply of goods to or for the execution of any works undertaken by that government. Take a look at this, section 9, subsection 9A, which talks about the disqualification for government contracts. What does this mean? It means that let's say, let me put it out clearly. Section 9A. Okay, what does Section 9A state? It states that if, let's say, if there's an X, let's say X has a business in which he takes contracts for government canteens. Let's imagine your college or a university. If it was a government college or university, there was a canteen or a mess that we are all, where we all have food at, etc. Now imagine if X as a private contractor takes the tender of running that canteen. I'm sure you can relate to that example, right? If X as a private contractor gets a tender of running that canteen, then the question would be, under Section 9A, the point under Section 9A, let's say for example, he has been given a tender for 5 years to run a government canteen, let's say in a, let's say IIT. Okay. Now during the time he is involved in the running of this canteen, during this time, during this duration, which may be 5 years or 6 years, he will not be allowed to contest elections, because there is a clear case of conflict of interest, because he may enter into the parliament, and while he is running a canteen, since his stakeholding is very clearly visible, he may try to do activities in such a manner that he may want to promote his business with respect to the government. You see the point? So this is what Section 9A says with regard to contracts. If a person has taken any government contracts, that person shall not be allowed to become a member of parliament, or shall be disqualified from becoming a member of parliament. Or let's say if the person after becoming a member of parliament has taken a government contract as a private trader or a businessman, then he will be disqualified till the duration that such government contract exists. Okay, till the duration that such government contract exists. That is what Section 9A states over here. Okay, till the duration that such government contract exists, he will not be allowed to become a member of parliament, or will have to vacate the seat as a member of parliament. Clear? I hope I am making the point here clearly. Okay, right. Another part which is given over here in Section 9A is that, let's say for example, if there's a company, there's a person called X who's working for a company, and they enter into a PPP, public private partnership, to, let's say for example, develop a metro rail line. Okay, now X amount of work, let's say A amount of work has to be done by the private contractor, and B amount of work has to be done by the government of India. Take a look at this, please. A amount of work has to be done by the private contractor, and B amount of work has to be done by the government of India. Let's say this person has done and completed the A amount of work. Okay, it is complete. Okay, but the B amount of work, the part which government had to do, is still incomplete. So what this section says is this: if his obligation under this contract are completed, then he cannot be said to have been disqualified. If only the obligations of the government is remaining and his obligation under this is complete, then he cannot be said to have been disqualified. You see the point of this? If the obligation of the government is complete and only his obligations are remaining, then this person cannot be said to have been disqualified or cannot be disqualified. That is section 9A for you. Can we take a look at this, please? Section 9A. Just read this once. With whatever I've explained to you. Okay. Right. So we are moving from section 9A to section 10. Disqualification for office under the government company. A person shall be disqualified if and for so long as he is a managing agent, manager or secretary of any company or corporation other than a cooperative society in the capital of which the appropriate government has not less than 25% share. Again, it has the same resonance with section 9A. Okay, so what it basically says is this, that let's say for example, if there is a corporation or a company except a cooperative society, if there's a corporation or a company except a cooperative society in which, let's say for example, X is either an owner or a manager, and in this the government of India or the government of any state, let's say government of Maharashtra or government of Madhya Pradesh, let's say, has a control of minimum 25% or more, then X will be disqualified for becoming a member of parliament, etc. Please take a look at this. If a company or a corporation except a cooperative society under the government of India and government of Madhya Pradesh, etc., in the state government has 25% or more shareholding from the government, then the owner or the manager working under this company or corporation will not be allowed to contest elections, will be disqualified as a member of parliament or a member of legislative assembly. Okay, this is what we are taking a look at in terms of section 10. Clear? Okay, then we move on to section 10A. Section 10A. We'll take a look at section 10A, please. Section 10A states that if a person, let's say for example, there are requirements which are made in Representation of People's Act that every person, X is contesting elections. Let's say when he is contesting elections, he is making some amount of expenditure, okay, during election campaigns, right? This is known as election expenditure. Election expenditure. This is to be made by all people who are contesting elections, election expenditures, okay. Now, the amount of money that you have spent in preparing for your own elections, according to the provisions later we'll discuss of the RPA, this person has to disclose to the ECI what this amount is. How much money has the candidate spent on elections? This has to be disclosed to the ECI. It's called lodging of accounts. Okay. It's called lodging of accounts with the Election Commission of India. If let's say this person has not been able to lodge his accounts with the Election Commission of India of his election expenditure, then the Election Commission of India can disqualify this person from contesting elections. Okay, then the Election Commission of India can disqualify this person from contesting elections. This is section 10A. Please take a look at this. Any person who's contesting election has to make some expenditure known as election expenditure, right? He's going to invest, make expenses in terms of, doing things for campaigning and creating a propaganda, etc. And he has to lodge the account of such expenditure with the Election Commission of India. If he is not able to lodge a real honest account of the expenditure, then the Election Commission of India can pass an order under which section 10A will operate and he will be disqualified either from taking his seat as an MP. Let's say he's won the elections but he's not revealing his election expenditure. Then the Election Commission of India can pass an order to get him out of the seat that he has won, that he will no longer be retained as a member of parliament or a member of legislative assembly or council. Clear? That is what basically section 10A states. Take a look at this. The period, I'm sorry, I forgot to write the period for this duration. The duration for this disqualification is going to be 3 years from the date of from the date of the order of the ECI. Take a look at the section 10A. Section 10A, disqualification for failure to lodge account of election expenses. If the Election Commission is satisfied that a person has failed to lodge an account of election expenses within the time and in the manner required by or under this Act, and has no good reason or justification for the failure, the Election Commission shall by order published in the official gazette declare him to be disqualified, and any such person shall be disqualified for a period of 3 years from the date of the order of the Election Commission of India. Right? Clear? This is what section 10A states. Now, these are all that we have covered. Section 11 does not talk about disqualification. It is a kind of a ending section. I'll come to it later. But let's take a quick summary of what we have done till now with regard to the Representation of People's Act. I am sure that you are very clear and categorical about how we are moving about these things. Okay. Summary of the RPA 1951. Already today we have covered a lot of content which is critical in answering questions for the main examination from the RPA, right? Okay, RPA 1951. Let's say, for example, you have number 1, section 3 and 4. We've covered it for the qualifications of the member of parliaments. Qualifications. In this I have discussed that he can be an elector from any constituency and he can have a voter I card from any constituency in the Lok Sabha elections. We discussed the 2003 amendment to the RPA and we have taken a look at the Kuldeep Nayyar versus Union of India judgment of the Supreme Court, in which the Supreme Court upheld the validity of the amendment. Then we take a look at section 7, which defines disqualification, section 8, which is divided into 4 categories, section 8 subsection A, subsection B, in fact sorry, section 8 subsection 1, 2, which are both specific offences. Okay, I think it's a good time to show you certain sections of specific offences given under section 8 under which a person can be disqualified. Take a look at this. Section 8. These are, for example, certain offences. If a person is convicted for them, that can be disqualified. This is the answer to the question that you asked about criminalization of politics, meaning the parliament can take any of these sections and list them under section 8(1) and 8(2) of the RPA 1951, and it can be a clear understanding as to what is going to happen over here. As to what all crimes, if you commit, you will be disqualified from the membership of parliament. This is the answer, right? Which are section, specific offences which are given over here. You get a kind of a simple, broad understanding as to what are the acts which, if done by people, will be, done by the reasons for disqualification for having committed a crime. Just taking a look at the questions that you're asking, maybe I can find someone. Okay. Now, if you want, you can take a look at section 8 subsection 3 also. I have taken a understanding of that, but just for your own references, just take a look at section 8 subsection 3, which is with regard to disqualification of generic offences, right? generic clause. Why do I call it generic? Because it creates a general law that any offence which has an imprisonment of a minimum of 2 years will be subject to disqualification. Right? If you want, you can take a look at section 8 subsection 4 also. Section 8 subsection 4. You can take a look at this, please. Okay, if you go down a little bit, you can see the case of what is known as struck down by the Supreme Court in the case of Lily Thomas versus Union of India, 2013, right? Though it is mentioned in the Constitution, in the RPA. Okay, it's section 8 subsection 4 3 and 8 subsection 4. So we've covered section 8 1 2 3 4 all categorically. Yeah, okay. Then we after that cover section 8A, which is regarding corrupt practices. Please be careful. When I call the term corrupt practice, I mean it in reference to elections, not corrupt practices just being generally corrupt or morally corrupt or mentally corrupt. No, corrupt practices with reference to elections. Okay, then after that you have section 9, section 10, sorry, section 9, 9A, 10, 10A. These are the sections that we have taken a look at. Clear? Now I request to you, just go to the Google search bar and type Representation of People's Act 1951. You will get a PDF of it. Just before you come to the class tomorrow, take a look at all these sections. You are not going to find it very difficult to read these sections directly after the kind of discussions that we have done in the class. If you are able to read these sections, try to learn them, try to memorize them. They will become a complete core of what you have to study in these sections of the RPA with regarding qualifications and disqualification of the member of parliaments, right? So with this kind of a completion, we have taken a look at all the conditions under which a member of parliament has to go through to qualify to become an MP, including a citizen of India and the minimum age criteria and section 3 and 4, and how a member of parliament once elected to a parliament or a state legislative assembly can be disqualified from it, and what is the duration of such disqualifications and conditions for such disqualification, right? That we have covered from section 7 to section 10A. Section 11 I will take up tomorrow with regard to the powers of the Election Commission. Is taking bribe corrupted and it caused dismissal? Yes. Bribery has been specified as an offence in section 8 subsection 1 very clearly, for which a person can be disqualified. But if you are asking the question, is it going to be a part of the corrupt offences mentioned under section 8A? I told you bribery only insofar as it relates to elections. Any kind of a corrupt practice in section 8A is dealt with regard to elections only, nothing else. Got the point? And the next question is, why election expenditure did not come under audit? Ultimate, it is public money. Why is election expenditure public money? I am a private businessman. I want to fight elections. I have my wealth. I want to spend that wealth in campaigning for elections and buying motorcycles and buying microphones and paying people to come to my rally. How is my private wealth public money? It is not public money. If I am planning to contest into elections, if my political party has a lot of money, the party which is kept with political party is not public money. It is not under the ambit of the CAG. You see the point? It has to be given, it is taken from private individuals, arranged from different sources, etc., etc. Some people themselves put their private wealth, but it is not under the ambit of the CAG. If at all, it is under the ambit of the Election Commission of India, and that's exactly the point. Tomorrow when we meet, we are going to further our understanding of the RPA and take a bit of an understanding again of Article 324 with regard to a judgment given by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has recently given a judgment on Election Commission of India, in which it has been told by the Supreme Court that a committee has to be established for the election or the appointment of the ECI. So I'll give you a little bit of an understanding of this judgment, explain the concept of plenary powers in reference to the Election Commission of India, and after that take a look at Article 327 plus 328 plus 329 election petitions, and complete the whole point about election petitions tomorrow, which is where we start reading section 80, section 80A, section 98, 99, 100, 101 and 116A of the RPA. Once we have covered these part of RPA would be totally done. We will not have to read any more in the RPA after this. Okay, clear. So we'll meet tomorrow and resume these parts in the class. Thank you for your time and patience. If you have any questions, you can pose them now. I can see the questions. I think I've answered most of them. Is it binding on the ECI to give opinion on the president? Yes, it is binding. If the president refers a question to the ECI cannot say I cannot answer this question. It is binding. Nimai, if Supreme Court upholds the verdict of Gujarat High Court, can Rahul Gandhi refile its petition to the Supreme Court, because Supreme Court itself is called self-correcting body, as it may change its previous decision? Yes, under a review petition or a curative petition it is possible, but unlikely that a judgment of the Supreme Court can be reviewed by the Supreme Court in this particular case itself, because more or less the bench which will take up the matter of the Supreme Court in Rahul Gandhi will be constituted by the Chief Justice of India, and I think Chief Justice of India himself is going to be on that bench, and once the CJI is on the bench, it is very hard for anyone to review that matter. Piyush Goyal come under section 9A. You don't come under section 9A just for being a businessman. You come under section 9A for being a person who's involved with the government as a businessman, if you've taken the contract of the government somewhere or the other. You see the point? Just because you are a businessman doesn't mean you can't be a member of parliament. If you're a businessman who is doing business with the government of India, can you be disqualified from being a member of parliament? Please don't miss upon this fact. Okay? Alright, I think I've taken most of the questions. Thank you for your time and patience. I will see you tomorrow. Thanks.